A simple woman mocked by snobby millionaires, only for them to discover she's a billionaire heiress. Ellie scrubbed marble floors while wealthy elites laughed above her. The silver-haired man's mockery cut deepest. They never imagined this invisible woman would soon tower above them all, financially and morally. The 5:15 a.m. alarm jolted Ellie Jenkins awake in her modest one-bedroom apartment in Queens. Soft dawn light filtered through thin curtains as her aging tabby cat, Fitzgerald, stretched beside her. At 34, Ellie's morning routine was down to military precision. 15 minutes to shower, 10 to dress, 5 for coffee, and exactly 23 minutes on the early train to make her first cleaning job by 7 a.m. Another day, another dollar, right Fitz? She murmured, scratching the cat's ears. Her refrigerator door displayed a carefully organized schedule, Monday through Wednesday at corporate offices in Manhattan, Thursdays at a penthouse on the Upper East Side, and Fridays at various Hamptons properties where the wealthy hosted their weekend soirees. The framed nursing degree hanging on her wall told a different story than her current life. 6 years ago, Ellie had been an ICU nurse with promising career prospects until her mother's Alzheimer's diagnosis changed everything. She'd left her job to become her mother's caretaker, draining her modest savings during those 3 difficult years. "Mom would be proud of you," Ellie told her reflection as she pinned her hair back. "Maybe not of the cleaning job, but of who you are." The memory of her mother's voice. "Education and kindness, Ellie, those are the things nobody can take from you," remained a steady compass in her life. After her mother's passing, medical bills had made returning to nursing impossible. The cleaning service offered immediate work, flexible hours, and enough income to slowly rebuild her life. It wasn't where she'd imagined herself, but Ellie faced each day with the quiet determination that had carried her through her mother's illness. On the subway, Ellie reviewed her schedule on a worn smartphone. Today's assignment was a last-minute addition, an evening charity gala at the Whitmore Estate in Southampton, where she would be part of a cleaning team working during the event. The pay was time and a half, exactly what she needed to cover the unexpected veterinary bill from Fitzgerald's recent health scare. A text message from her supervisor brought a small smile to her face. "Whitmore crowd is extra high maintenance. Keep your head down, do the job, get out. Worth the money, though." By evening, Ellie had already completed 2 regular cleaning jobs when she arrived at the Whitmore mansion. The sprawling estate stood like a monument to excess. Manicured gardens surrounding a colonial-style mansion where imported marble and gold leaf accents were as common as dust in her own apartment. "You're with bathroom detail and floor maintenance," the head of the cleaning crew told her, handing over supplies. "Stay invisible, that's what they pay for. These people don't want to be reminded who keeps their world sparkling." Ellie nodded, slipping on the yellow rubber gloves that had become almost an extension of her hands. As she gathered her supplies, she allowed herself a moment to absorb the opulence around her. The fresh-cut flowers worth more than her monthly rent, artwork that could have paid off her remaining debt. She didn't resent these people their wealth. That required energy she couldn't spare. What occasionally struck her was how easily they moved through spaces like this, as if such luxury was air itself, necessary and unremarkable. "Focus, Ellie," she whispered to herself. "In and out. It's just one night." Little did she know, this night would be the dividing line in her life's story, the last evening she would spend on her knees, invisible to those who believed their wealth made them worthy of looking down on others. The charity gala was in full swing when Ellie was called to clean a spill in the main reception hall. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over guests in designer evening wear, their jewelry catching and throwing back fragments of light like stars competing for attention. Ellie moved efficiently between the guests, her black uniform and downcast eyes rendering her nearly invisible, until she knelt to clean a champagne spill near the central marble fireplace. "Well, well, what do we have here?" The voice carried over the ambient chatter, deliberately loud enough to draw attention. A human floor scrubber. Ellie kept working, hoping the moment would pass. It didn't. Charles Whitmore, silver-haired host in his signature blue velvet suit, stepped closer. At 68, his wealth had long ago convinced him that cruelty could masquerade as wit. "Look at that technique, everyone," he announced, gesturing toward Ellie with his crystal tumbler. "Fascinating to watch them in their natural habitat." A circle formed, Men in tailored tuxedos, women with diamonds worth more than Ellie would earn in a decade. This wasn't part of her job description, becoming entertainment for the elite. "I've got it, sir," Ellie replied, keeping her voice steady as she continued working. "You know," a woman in cream silk interjected, "I always wonder what goes through their minds. Do they ever imagine what it would be like to be, well, us?" "What's your name, dear?" Charles asked, his tone falsely paternal. "Ellie, sir." "Ellie," he repeated, as if examining a peculiar specimen. "Short for Eleanor, I assume, though I doubt your parents were thinking of Eleanor Roosevelt." Laughter rippled through the group. Someone took a photo. Ellie flinched at the flash. "Tell me, Ellie," Charles continued, "what aspirations occupy your thoughts while you perform your duties?" "Dreams of marrying rich, perhaps." Ellie finally looked up, meeting his gaze. Something in her steady brown eyes made Charles blink. "I think about doing my job well, sir, and going home to my cat." The circle erupted in laughter. Charles's theatrical grin spread across his face. "How utterly predictable," he announced. "The simple life for the simple woman." Ellie quietly moved her bucket to the next section of floor, her cheeks burning despite her outward composure. In 3 years of cleaning for the wealthy, she'd learned that invisibility was her best defense. What she didn't know, as she continued her methodical work that evening, was that invisibility was about to become impossible, and the very people laughing at her would soon find themselves in a very different position. 3 years passed, like seasons changing, steadily, inevitably, each day blending into the next. Ellie's life continued in its familiar rhythm, though the night at the Whitmore mansion had left an invisible mark on her spirit. She'd quit the Hamptons cleaning circuit the day after the incident, focusing instead on her regular Manhattan clients where she could work in empty offices and penthouses, free from the performative cruelty of the elite. The memory of Charles Whitmore's laughter occasionally surfaced in quiet moments, not as sharp as before, but present, like an old injury that aches before rain. "You're too good for those Hampton snobs anyway," her friend Diane said over their monthly coffee meetup. Diane, a fellow cleaner who'd witnessed that night, had become Ellie's closest confidant. Ellie smiled faintly. "I don't think about them much anymore." It wasn't entirely true. Sometimes she wondered what invisible struggles lay behind their perfect veneers, what emptiness required filling through others' humiliation. Her small apartment remained her sanctuary. She'd added a few modest improvements: new curtains, a refurbished couch found at a neighborhood sale, a collection of second-hand nursing textbooks that kept her knowledge current despite her absence from the profession. "Still thinking about going back?" Diane asked, noticing Ellie's gaze drift toward the window. "To nursing?" "Sometimes, but the recertification costs." Ellie shrugged. "One day." That evening, trudging up the stairs to her 5th-floor walk-up with groceries, Ellie found a notice taped to her door. The building had been sold. Rent would increase by 40% within 3 months. "Just perfect," she muttered, Fitzgerald weaving between her ankles as she entered the apartment. Her budget was already stretched tissue thin. This wasn't a bump in the road. It was a mountain suddenly appearing on her horizon. Over the next weeks, Ellie picked up extra shifts, applied for better paying positions, and still came up short. The new rent would be impossible unless she moved further out, adding hours to her commute and reducing her already limited sleep. Standing at her kitchen counter, calculator in hand, a strange peace washed over her. She'd survived her mother's illness, rebuilding from nothing before. She would do it again. "We've got this, Fitz," she said, stroking the aging cat. "Change is just life's way of pushing us forward." Little did she know how profound that change would be, or that fate was already in motion, bringing a man in an expensive suit to her door, with news that would rewrite her story completely. The knock came at 7:13 p.m. on a Tuesday, 3 sharp raps that echoed in Ellie's small apartment. Fitzgerald disappeared under the bed, unusual for a cat who typically greeted visitors with curious indifference. Through the peephole, Ellie saw a man in his 60s wearing a tailored suit that spoke of quiet wealth, not the flashy display of the Hamptons crowd, but the understated elegance of old money. "Ms. Eleanor Jenkins?" he asked when she opened the door, security chain still in place. "Yes? My name is Robert Harrington, of Harrington, Wells & Pierce Attorneys at Law." He offered a business card through the gap. I need to speak with you regarding a rather urgent matter concerning your great-uncle, Edmund Blackwell. Ellie frowned, examining the embossed card. There must be some mistake. See, I don't have a great-uncle, Edmund. The man's expression didn't change. May I come in? I assure you, there's no mistake. Against her better judgment, Ellie unhooked the chain. Something about his somber demeanor suggested this wasn't a scam, at least not an obvious one. Once seated at her small dining table, Robert Harrington removed a leather portfolio from his briefcase. Ms. Jenkins, were you aware that your maternal grandmother had a brother? Grandmother Clara? She died before I was born. Mom rarely mentioned her family. That's not surprising. There was a significant estrangement. Harrington adjusted his glasses. Edmund Blackwell left America in 1962 after a family dispute. He settled in Switzerland, made investments in emerging technologies, and over 6 decades built what became Blackwell International. Ellie's confusion deepened. The tech company? The one that makes microprocessors, security systems, and medical imaging equipment, among other things. Yes. Harrington nodded. Your great-uncle passed away 3 months ago at the age of 97. I'm sorry to hear that, Ellie offered automatically. But I still don't understand why you're here. Harrington opened his portfolio. Mr. Blackwell never married or had children. Despite the family rift, he maintained distant surveillance on his sister's descendants. Upon his death, his estate entered a complex dissolution process according to his highly specific will. He slid a document across the table. After exhaustive verification, we've confirmed you are the sole living descendant of Clara Blackwell Jenkins, Edmund's sister. Ellie stared at the paper, legal terminology swimming before her eyes. Ms. Jenkins, Harrington continued, his voice softening slightly, Edmund Blackwell left an estate valued at approximately $4.7 billion, and you are his sole heir. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. I assure you, it's quite real. Harrington produced more documents. We've spent the past 3 months verifying your identity and freezing assets to prevent market disruption before contacting you. Ellie stood abruptly, pacing the small space. This has to be a mistake, or a cruel joke. The memory of Charles Whitmore's laughter flashed through her mind. Did someone put you up to this? Harrington remained unperturbed. Ms. Jenkins, I've been the Blackwell family attorney for 35 years. I understand your skepticism, but by this time tomorrow, the first portion of your inheritance, $50 million, will be transferred to a secure account in your name. He placed a black credit card on the table. This is connected to a temporary account with $500,000 to manage immediate needs while we process the full transfer. Ellie stared at the card, as if it might burst into flames. Why me? Why now? Edmund was particular. He specified that his heir should have established a life of their own before receiving his fortune. Harrington's expression softened further. He wanted to be certain money wouldn't be their only defining characteristic. As night fell over Queens, Ellie Jenkins, cleaner of other people's homes, keeper of modest dreams, sat across from a man who claimed she was now one of the wealthiest women in America. And somewhere in the vast universe, it seemed the fates themselves were preparing for her return to the Hamptons. 3 months after Robert Harrington's visit, Ellie stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Central Park West penthouse. The city sprawled before her like a constellation of earthbound stars. Fitzgerald lounged on a custom-made cat tree, blissfully unaware of how dramatically their circumstances had changed. The transformation of her external world had been swift and overwhelming. Financial advisors, estate managers, personal assistants, and stylists had entered her life like a whirlwind. Yet Ellie herself changed more slowly, deliberately, like a plant carefully determining which direction to grow toward the light. The board meeting for the Blackwell Foundation is tomorrow at 10, her assistant Caroline reminded her, tablet in hand. They're eager to meet the mysterious heir who stayed out of the spotlight. Ellie nodded, fingers absently tracing the window glass. The foundation had been her first priority after understanding the full scope of her inheritance. A vehicle to address healthcare inequities, particularly for caregivers like she had been. And Ms. Jenkins? Caroline hesitated. The annual Whitmore Charity Gala invitation arrived. It's the same event you mentioned? Ellie turned, her reflection in the glass overlapping with the memory of herself on hands and knees, yellow gloves stark against dark marble. Yes, the one where I was the entertainment. Caroline shifted uncomfortably. Should I decline? No, Ellie said softly. Accept it. It's time. That evening, as her new stylist presented options for the gala, Ellie reflected on her great-uncle Edmund, a man she'd never met, but whose philosophy increasingly resonated with her. His handwritten letter, delivered a month after Harrington's visit, had contained unexpected wisdom. Money doesn't change who you are, it amplifies it. The true test of character isn't gaining wealth, but carrying it with grace. She'd been determined to pass that test. The cleaning service where she'd worked now received anonymous donations, offering healthcare benefits to all employees. Her former landlord was surprised by a renovation fund for the building, ensuring tenants like herself wouldn't be priced out. Wealth, Ellie discovered, was like water. It could nourish or drown, depending on how it flowed. This one, she said, selecting not the most extravagant gown, but one with quiet elegance that echoed her inherent dignity. As she prepared for bed in her new home, luxurious yet deliberately understated, Ellie knew her return to the Hamptons wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her narrative, about standing in the fullness of who she was, not just a billionaire heiress, but a woman who understood both struggle and compassion. The Whitmore Gala was approaching, and this time, she wouldn't be on her knees. The Whitmore estate glowed against the evening sky as Ellie's driver navigated the private road leading to the mansion. Through the car window, she observed the same manicured perfection she once maintained, now as an invited guest rather than an invisible hand. "We've arrived, Ms. Jenkins," her driver announced, pulling up to the entrance where valets in crisp uniforms stood at attention. Ellie smoothed the midnight blue silk of her gown, its subtle elegance a deliberate choice. No flashy diamonds, no ostentatious display, just the quiet confidence of a woman who no longer needed to prove her worth to anyone. The moment her heels touched the marble steps, heads turned. A ripple of whispers followed her progress, not about the cleaning woman they once mocked, but about the mysterious Blackwell heiress making her first public appearance since inheriting one of America's great fortunes. "Ms. Jenkins, welcome," the event coordinator gushed, checking her name against the guest list. "Mr. Whitmore will be delighted you could attend." Inside, the ballroom was exactly as she remembered. Crystal chandeliers, imported flowers, the subtle hum of wealth and privilege. Yet now, she moved through it differently, no longer skirting the edges with a cleaning cloth, but gliding through the center with a champagne flute. "Eleanor Jenkins?" A woman's voice carried a note of uncertainty. Ellie turned to find Victoria, the woman in cream silk who had joined Charles's mockery 3 years ago. Recognition flickered across Victoria's face. Confusion, then shock, then a hasty recalibration. "It is you," Victoria breathed, her social training kicking in despite her surprise. "I heard the Blackwell heiress was named Eleanor, but I never imagined you look so different." Ellie smiled. "Life changes us all, doesn't it?" "Yes, of course," Victoria fumbled. You're not in cleaning services anymore then?" "No," Ellie replied simply. "Though I learned valuable lessons there." Victoria's discomfort was palpable. "I should introduce you to everyone. Charles will be fascinated, I'm sure," Ellie finished for her, calm dignity infusing her words. As Victoria led her through the crowd, Ellie felt curious eyes tracking her progress. These were the same people who had looked through her, past her, or worse, down at her. Now they angled for introductions, magnetized by her new status in their world. Near the grand fireplace, holding court as he always did, stood Charles Whitmore. His silver hair and blue velvet suit remained unchanged, a man secure in his position at the top of the social hierarchy. Until now. "Charles," Victoria called, her voice artificially bright. "You absolutely must meet Eleanor Jenkins. She's Edmund Blackwell's niece, the heiress everyone's been talking about." Charles turned, his practiced smile freezing as their eyes met. And in that breathtaking moment of recognition, the balance of power irrevocably shifted. Time seemed to suspend itself as Charles Whitmore's expression traveled through shock, disbelief, and the dawning horror of recognition. "You're," he began, champagne glass tilting dangerously in his hand. "Ellie," she supplied calmly. We've met before, Mr. Whitmore, though I was in a different position then. His complexion paled beneath his tan. Around them, conversations quieted as the room sensed the unfolding drama. I don't believe... Charles began, then stopped, recalibrating. His social training kicked in, forcing a brittle smile. Of course, what a remarkable transformation. Not really a transformation, Ellie corrected gently. I'm the same person I've always been. The silence expanded, pulling more onlookers into its orbit. Victoria shifted uncomfortably beside them, desperate to salvage the moment. Charles hosts the most magnificent charity galas, she blurted. His foundation has raised millions for children's education, Ellie finished. Yes, I reviewed the foundation's work before accepting the invitation. Admirable efforts. Charles seemed to find his footing. Well, we all do what we can for those less fortunate. His condescension remained, if slightly muted. Ellie's smile remained steady. That's actually why I came tonight. My foundation is launching a healthcare dignity initiative, providing support for home healthcare workers and family caregivers. I thought your donor network might be interested. Someone in the gathering crowd murmured appreciation. Charles blinked rapidly. The irony isn't lost on me, Ellie continued, her voice carrying just enough to reach those around them. 3 years ago, I cleaned these floors while caring for my mother with Alzheimer's. Today, I have the resources to ensure others don't face that struggle alone. She raised her glass slightly. To seeing people for who they truly are, not just what they do or what they have. The simple toast carried the weight of a profound truth, one that left Charles Whitmore speechless for perhaps the first time in his privileged life. As the evening drew to a close, Ellie slipped away from the gala, the cool night air a welcome relief from the charged atmosphere inside. Behind her, conversations buzzed with her story, not just of wealth acquired, but of dignity maintained through life's harshest moments. Charles Whitmore had spent the remainder of the evening avoiding her, his typical boisterous demeanor subdued by the living embodiment of his own failings of character. Walking to her waiting car, Ellie felt lighter, not from triumph over those who'd humiliated her, but from the realization that their opinion had never defined her worth, not when she cleaned their floors, and not now that she could buy their homes many times over. True wealth, she'd discovered, wasn't measured in billions or buildings. It was found in treating others with respect, regardless of their station, in maintaining compassion even when handed power, and in remembering where you came from, no matter how far you'd traveled. Ellie's journey reminds us that dignity isn't determined by dollars, and true character shines through life's darkest moments. Have you ever been underestimated or judged unfairly based on appearances? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, we never know another person's full story or potential. The person cleaning your floor today might own the building tomorrow, not because of luck or magic, but because human worth transcends visible circumstances. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more powerful narratives that explore life's unexpected transformations and the triumph of the human spirit.